Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Boot Nerds podcast. What's going on, Jay?
What's up, my guys? It's going to be fun today. We have something very exciting to talk about as per the usual. Now, before we get started, do remember to support this video with a like if you're happy. If you have any cool questions you want us to potentially answer, leave them in the comment section right down below. And also, don't forget that if you want the audio-only version of the podcast, you can find them in the link in the description. And I think with those formalities out of the way, we have come to today's big topic, which is leather versus synthetic. And it maybe seems a little bit weird to have this discussion in 2019 because, I mean, it's all about synthetic these days, right? But wrong, because recently there has been a surge in leather boots, and especially high-quality leather boots, where we have just seen Nike, Mizuno, Adidas, Puma, just bringing out heat leather boots and really underlining the importance of leather still in 2019. So today we're going to discuss the differences between the two materials and what are the benefits and which we like more, I guess.
Just to be clear, because I feel like when I bring up this discussion topic, or when I have in the past, people get confused with synthetic and what that implies. Synthetic means anything that's not a natural leather material. So that means plasticky synthetic uppers. That also means knitted uppers. They fall under synthetic as well, just to be clear.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people they hear synthetic and they don't think knitted as well. Knitted is definitely synthetic.
Absolutely. And I think, it's fair that people today talk about leather, synthetic, knit, because there are so many knitted boots these days that it makes sense to make the distinction, but in reality, everything is just synthetic.
And you know what? We should leave a little poll in the corner of the screen. I want everyone to leave their opinion down below in the comments, but what is your preference, synthetic or leather, and why? Because I'm genuinely curious, and there's lots of great options in both categories, but if you had to pick, what would you pick?
You can only wear one material for the rest of your life. What are you going to choose? And go. But this I would say discussion is, for me, a very interesting one, because I would typically lean towards leather simply because I love that personal sensation you get from leather. But over the last couple of years, synthetics, and especially knit, but also normal synthetic uppers have really started, pulling me more and more towards that. Especially now, I know we've talked about the Vapor 13 a lot, so let's not dive into that. We can just quickly touch on the colorway, limited edition, all that jazz, pretty cool. But with the release of this one, the new generation of Mercurial, my love for leather and my dedication to leather has been put to the test, because synthetics are getting better and better at what leather is really good at, with the only exception of having this really soft padded touch. So for me, it's very exciting, and I'm interested as to where we're gonna end up today, and what you will have to say on the whole synthetic leather debate.
You're 110% right that synthetics are better than they have ever been by a lot. Because when I think about this, I've always thought, okay, what are some of my personal favorite boots of all time? And a lot of them are leather, probably like yourself. But when I think about the boots that I wore as a kid, before I was doing any of this product testing stuff, I had plenty of synthetic boots and I had plenty of leather boots. And looking back, I think all of the best experiences that I had, especially from a comfort standpoint, and this is going back 10, 15 years now, they were almost all leather. But can I say that now? Can I say that all of my best experiences over the last 5 years have been leather boots? Not necessarily, because there have been a lot of breakthroughs when it comes to synthetics, and I guess more specifically knitted uppers. That specific technology has changed the industry significantly.
Absolutely. But the funny thing is that, and I'm going to ask this question a little bit later as well, but yeah, we can look back historically at what has been our, most favorite boot. But also today, I was just thinking about it. When you look at leather and synthetic boots, and I would ask you the question, which are the most comfortable football boots on the market? you could probably say a couple of years ago you could have the Evo Power Vigors, and there are a couple of other boots that have really, really soft synthetic uppers, knit boots included, by the way. But when we're talking from a pure comfort perspective, like, is there still anything, or can anything rival leather when it comes to pure comfort? It's a question I'm asking. I think I kind of know where I want to go with it, and I want to say no. But where are you in this?
I'm just trying to think right now. If I had to pick a boot purely based on being comfortable, not being concerned about anything else,
you would pick this one, the Rebula 3, right?
No, because it has the tightness to it. The tightness for me does not necessarily equate to comfort. It's now as soon as you make a boot really tight on your foot, I feel like you're sacrificing the comfort to a certain extent.
So what would you choose then?
This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, yeah, Morelia 2 would be a very solid choice. I'm thinking Tiempo Legend 8 Elite is a very comfortable football boot. It is. It's not my favorite.
It's tight. But it's tight.
Is it tight though? I don't think it's that tight.
Yeah, for me,
Really?
it's tight. For me, the Rebula isn't very tight.
Really?
I mean, it's tight enough to feel responsive and nice and all that stuff. But I consider this a very, very comfortable boot because it has some extra width in the midfoot. I know you're flat-footed, so you probably fill it out a lot more than I do. But for me, Legend 8, I mean, yeah, it's a comfortable boot, but I wouldn't put it anywhere near the top, because for me, Legend 8 is more about responsiveness and snug. Should we say mix between comfort and classic comfort, at least, and responsiveness. So
yeah,
I guess we differ a little bit there.
No, I was just
I agree with you on the Morelia too.
On the basis of the upper having no real hard structure to it, where there is a hard structure through the midfoot on the Rebula.
I get what you're saying there, but for me, like, comfort comes from feeling good in the boot. That for me is what comfort is, where you feel like there's nothing restricting the movement of your foot, but where you also feel like you get just enough support that your foot isn't sliding all over the place. Because if a boot is too loose, and sometimes the Morelia can have a tendency to not really lock in your foot well enough when you make hard turns in the midfoot. So this is where I like my midfoot to be a little bit stable, and this is like 100% just my personal preference. I could be very weird, but I like to have a little bit of stability in the midfoot to feel comfortable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, comfort is purely down to personal preference, like you just said.
Absolutely.
And maybe this is a weird pick, but I'm looking at the back wall here. I really find the Nike Premier 2 very comfortable.
Again, it's a leather boot, right?
Right? It's a leather. I feel like leather boots in general tend to be more comfortable. And the other thing about a leather boot as well is the fit and feel out of the box is not necessarily going to be the same after a couple of wears.
No.
Right? So I think with a synthetic boot, the way it fits for the most part is the way it's going to feel for its entire lifespan, where a leather boot might feel really comfortable out of the box, and the more you wear them, the more comfortable they get. So I think if we're talking purely comfort, I give the edge to leather boots, but I don't think it's a big edge.
I understand what you're saying. I would probably, if I search my soul really deeply, I would probably give a bigger edge to leather boots than I'd care to admit. Because for me, I'm just sat here with the Puma 1 5.1s, and they're nice when you get them. They're decently soft, but I've worn these for 4 or 5 hours, and the upper is butter. Mm-hmm. Butter. Butter. It is ridiculous. And yes, leather can overstretch. Sometimes that means that it's not as comfortable as it could be, because you don't get that snug, nice personal fit, which for me equals comfort. But no matter what, leather will always have the benefit of being able to stretch in the places you need it to, where synthetics might not. And I'm not saying it won't, but it might not have that as, synthetics as a material overall. But then again, does that mean that leather is the best material? Absolutely not, because comfort is one benefit where leather might edge it. What about, thickness, touch on the ball, lightweight, durability, all these sorts of things where synthetics can actually have a quite significant benefit over leather. I mean, where are you in all this?
Yeah, I think you can have a lot more variety with a synthetic boot, right? I think the cool part about synthetic boots and what really intrigued me when they came onto the scene, because there was a point when pretty much everything high end was a leather football boot. So as much as people complain that everything is a variation of the same thing now, go back 25 years, everything was legitimately exactly the same for the most part. There
Absolutely, yeah.
not a lot of variety at all. So when synthetics came onto the scene and we got stuff like the original Vapor 1, like that was
actually started with the Mercurial R9 in 1998.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the silhouette of a Vapor 1.
Oh yeah,
I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, that is a spaceship that you could wear on your feet. Like compared to the other boots that you could get in 2002, that was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that was the Vapor and the Mania, right? Two completely different.
Right, just
boots.
as those came out, it was such a cool thing. And what synthetic boots have allowed brands to do is basically engineer the upper in ways that they are basically unable to do with leather. When you have a leather upper, it's a natural material off a kangaroo or a cow or whatever animal it might be. And the skin of the animal is the skin of the animal. They really can't do much other than just add things to it. Right?
Exactly.
Where synthetic, it's like, especially with knitted uppers, they can engineer every square millimeter of the upper to be exactly the way they want it. And that allows for variance in touch, variance in fit, variance in pretty much anything they want, which is really cool.
And this is something that's very interesting for me, because especially with the rise of knitted boots, as you said, that is kind of a game changer here. And coming back to the new Mercurial, it really goes to show how much you can actually do when you can completely engineer every single little millimeter off the upper, because you can then make sure that it's soft, you can make sure it has tension so you get the right amount of lockdown, and that, it has enough give to fit most feet. You can also engineer it so that while it's soft and has great lockdown, it also has a lot of texture, which you can't get that much of on a leather boot. And you can basically treat it with whatever kind of material you want. You can glue on it, you can paint it, you can color it. There's so many options for synthetic boots, and the comfort level you get on top of all this is good enough and so close to what you get in a leather boot that I would say, maybe synthetics would have the overall advantage.
Yeah, but I think I agree with you. The peak of synthetics is very, very good, but there's also a much bigger range when it comes to synthetics, right? You can have the really good stuff, and then you can have basically complete garbage. Like, you might as well be wearing boots made out of Legos. It's that bad, right? Like, take down models as an example, right?
Or the Vizaro 2s from New Balance, which were also like synthetics can be really bad.
Yeah, like you have there's such a spectrum when it comes to synthetic boots, where leather, and I've said this many times before for people that are on a budget and you're looking to buy a takedown model, if you're buying a retail $80 football boot and you have a choice between a leather one and a synthetic one, I guarantee you almost 10 out of 10 times that leather boot is going to be a lot better in the long run, because leather will always be soft. You know exactly what you're getting with a leather football boot.
And no matter if it's cow or goat or, calf or kangaroo, whatever kind of leather it is gonna stretch and get softer. That's just how it is. And you don't always know that with synthetics.
Yeah. And one other thing that I think is worth pointing out, because especially when Nike brought Kangalite onto the scene with the CTR 360, one of the big things that they promoted with that was not only that it felt like leather, but the fact that it had all the benefits of a synthetic that are downsides of leather: the maintenance, the water absorption, the overstretching, all of these things that had kind of been programmed in our head that were legitimate issues in leather football boots at one point in time aren't really the issues that they once were anymore. So I want that to be clear as well. If you buy a modern leather football boot from pretty much any brand, short of a Copa Mundial, the classic Copa, like that's not a boot that you're going to wear in wet weather and they're going to be wet for 3 weeks. Like,
No, and this is another interesting thing because, yeah, we've talked about that a leather boot is a leather boot, but just like synthetics, leather boot are also moving forward, and especially with the Copa 19 Plus here, this is actually the first boot where you have fused leather with a synthetic material, which is the prime knit on top of it, where you have a seamless transition where it almost seems as if the leather and the prime knit is one material, which is kind of impressive. Not only have they done that, but they've also treated it with I think it's a thin layer of film, a very thin layer of film. So the leather kind of maintains its natural feel, its natural tackiness, and of course the padded softness. But it also means that they can actually weld on it, glue stuff onto the leather. They can paint on it. They can put patterns on it as if it was a synthetic. So this is like treading new ground for leather as well, because it means that maybe in a couple of years, it's going to be more mainstream that you can also now start to treat leather as a synthetic, if you know what I mean. Synthetic has kind of been going towards getting all the benefits from leather, but I think it's also, the brands are looking to also go the other way and see what they can bring to the table for leather innovation. And with the Legend 8, I mean, Nike tried to innovate on leather. We've discussed till lengths why it may and may not have worked, but they've tried to make it more synthetic-y, while keeping those nice leather traits, right? Okay, they then added quad fit mesh on the inside of the leather, which means that you don't get the full benefits of the leather. So it's kind of like,
yeah, I think we agreed that the best leather boots are the ones where the leather is kind of just left alone to be the star of the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit ironic that you want to make it more synthetic and you actually end up ruining the leather experience because you're trying too hard. But it's still interesting that even the Tiempo, which is like a stable of leather boots, right? It's like the classic, one of the iconic leather boots out there still left. And still Nike want to take it more in a synthetic-y direction. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think you also have to take into consideration preference when it comes to touch, because some people do like that really thin feel. But I'm also kind of thinking like, yeah, okay, you like that thin feel. Maybe you're into Mercurials or the X line from Adidas or whatever it may be. But then there's leather boots like the Puma King Platinum. That's effectively a leather Mercurial. Same with the Puma 1 5.1. 5.1.
Yeah, 1.
The 5.1, relatively thin boot. That is effectively their speed boot right now, right? So there are options, not to say that those feel like Mercurials. I think that's a bit of a stretch to say.
Absolutely.
But
still, it gives you what most people would be looking for in a speed boot, right? It gives you a decent locked-in fit. It gives you a sharp, thin, close touch on the ball, but then you also get an upper that's just unrivaled when it comes to softness because it is a very high quality kangaroo leather that's super thin, so it really molds around your foot. I'm just saying, and the one is a good example of what you can also do when you say, okay, let's not paint the lines too clearly here. Let's mix and match leather and synthetics. Let's use what leather is good at with what synthetic is good at. And the one is an interesting example here because we have this very, what's it called again? The sprint web.
I think it's sprint.
So many things called something with speed or sprint and web these days. So I think it's speed web, but it might be sprint web. If it is, please bear with me. But the stuff on the outside, the synthetic on the outside here, right? Are you looking through your notes?
I have notes. I'm actually, it's going to bother me. Sprint web. Okay, I was onto something. But the sprint web out on the outside here, right? It goes in and actually holds your foot more in place and prevents it from moving too much. And then you get the leather where you need it. So it's kind of like Puma have seen, okay, the benefits of leather is this. The benefits of synthetic, we can use that here, right? They've merged it nicely. Do you think this is the future of like synthetic and leather stuff? Well, no, that's not the future. That's the one, Jay. I don't know. I don't think it's the future.
I thought we were done with this.
Well, it was a perfect opportunity. I don't think it is the future because I think that
No, it's the one.
That's the one.
Come on, you can't walk into that one. Just now.
No, but like to
Okay.
be
Are we gonna see it? Are we gonna see it in 5 years' time?
no, because let's be real. Has that concept really been executed well over the 5 or 6 times that they've tried it? This is the first time where I think they've really got it
The one?
really right. You can make an argument for the 1.1 and the 119.1. They're solid boots as well, but the connection between the leather and the knitted parts of the upper were very clear. Like it felt like the toe was leather and the rest of the boot was not. This new 5.1 has this more.
It's more interconnected, right?
It
works
like
better in unison.
Yeah, it makes sense what they did. So I think it's hard to combine all of those materials into one. And again, it's
but they have.
They've done a good job. They've done a good job, but it is ultimately a tricky thing because you've now created a football boot that doesn't necessarily appeal to. Does it appeal to the knitted guys or does it appeal to the leather guys? It's kind of like too much in the middle of both, you know? Like if you really want a hardcore speed boot, you're more likely to pick a Mercurial or an X over a Puma 1. And if you really want a leather boot, are you really going to go after the Puma 1 over a more true leather boot?
But still, I mean, I'd argue that the Puma 1 does something that no other boot out there does, which is that it appeals for, I mean, at least as I see it, it can appeal to everyone, right? Because it has a little bit of everything. It has a very good fit. It's light. It gives you decent stability. It has a relatively responsive outsole, good sharp touch, still a little bit of elegant touch on the ball. I mean, it's just a very rounded football boot, and I can't see any other boot out there currently that can do all those things. So yes, it's maybe a bit stuck in the middle, but maybe that's a good thing in a boot world where people try to be as specialized as possible. And by the way, failing miserable because most boots these days are all very light and feel like variations of speed boots, right?
Yeah, for sure. I guess this is a fair question to ask. Do you think that realistically leather boots have a chance of making a comeback? Do you think this is, because I almost feel like this recent push for leather football boots exists simply on the basis of, hey, let's do something that we haven't really done for the last 5 or 6 years. And I think they're trying to almost hype up leather as this new thing again. Like if they're trying to like almost like get the retro vibe back into the modern generation. But I think they're going to have a hard time convincing a 13-year-old to buy a leather boot.
You may be right, but this 13-year-old is also going to grow up at one point. And I think that, yes, leather boots are here to stay. I think we might not, I think we're going to see domination from synthetic boots, especially knit boots or whatever's going to come after knit, because something will come. But I do see that leather boots will be around because it's just something, it can give you something that, as of yet, synthetics haven't been able to give you. And it offers something so unique that you can't replicate it yet with synthetics. So unless you can actually make synthetic leather that is as good as the real deal, I still see it being around. But you're right, I don't think it's going to get a revival or a comeback if we want. As in, leather will be should we say, innovated. And there's going to be a big change to leather. I think it's going to follow the trend of what's going on with synthetic boots, and that we're going to see more of the Copa 19 Plus Puma 1 stuff, where we will see like fusioned, or fused boots, whatever you call it in English, with both leather and synthetic. I think that's where the future lies for leather boots, even on the one.
Yeah, but you mentioned that 13-year-old kid is eventually going to grow up. Those kids are not growing up with the same football boots that we grew up with.
Absolutely not.
We grew up in a generation when leather football boots were what you really wanted. And then when synthetic boots came onto the scene, because we were kind of more boot enthusiasts, we were the early adopters of some of that technology, even though it wasn't very good. Like, come on, you you bled through some of those early Mercurials to wear them, right?
yeah,
They were not, there's no boots like that anymore. So I think through those experiences, as you get older, you're like, oh, you know what? I actually really like leather, and I'm probably just going to try to stick to that because I know it's going to be comfortable for me. Where kids now, they're growing up and sock boots are the norm, right? So I don't see too many kids growing up and getting to a certain age and being like, you know what? I don't want knitted uppers anymore. I want a classic Copa, because it was never a part of their childhood. It was never a part of what they grew up with. And I think you see it with a lot of pros now. There are less and less pros, especially the younger generation that's now coming up. You don't see too many wearing leather boots anymore. It's the vast majority synthetic. It's taken over.
But do you think leather will die in 5 or 10 years? I mean, have we seen the last leather boot in 10 years?
I don't think it'll ever be completely dead, but I think that right now, in the next 10 years, is the most we will see of leather football boots. I think
you're right. Yes.
I think within the next 2 or 3 years, there'll be half the amount of leather football boots available.
So which do you think will die then? Like what's going to happen, for instance, to Mizuno?
See, Mizuno is the one standalone brand. They seem to be really focused on their customer base that is into leather boots, and they don't care what anyone else is doing. So they I think, are fine, right? And let's be real, like, they're small in comparison to everyone else. They make great stuff, and their customers appreciate what they make. But when you're talking about Nike, Adidas, and Puma, I mean, obviously Puma has really put a focus on leather boots. 2 out of 3 models they're making are leather right now. Will that remain the case? I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit worried for them because of the choice that they've made, even though I think that the 2 leather boots they make are some of the best leather boots they've made some of the best boots they've made, period, in a very long time. And
their sales are better than they have been in a long, long time.
But is that, I mean,
this is just the reason I'm like thinking, okay, it's probably not better just because of leather, but it's also, it's very good despite of them having 2 out of 3 boots being leather boots. I mean, also because of their pricing system. Of course, that has something to do with it, because you get a high level boot at 200 euros. Go ahead.
It's tough. I think you're right. Pending the success of these current leather boots that have come out, if they all do really well, then there's definitely potential for this kind of wave of popularity on leather boots to continue. But long term, just as looking at this from a business perspective, I think it's more profitable for these brands, and they can do more design-wise long term by producing their own things, their own synthetics, their own knitted uppers. And Nike has really proved this. They've changed the industry with the concept of Flyknit, and Adidas has followed suit, and everybody's making knitted uppers now. So I really do see that as the future. And there seems to be more and more of this trend towards getting rid of leather boots rather than having them stick around. Like, I don't know if you know about California, but they've already banned kangaroo leather products, which is absolutely ridiculous considering there are no kangaroos anywhere near California other than maybe the zoo. So I'm not entirely sure what they're really realistically trying to protect in one state in the United States. But that's a thing. But that's a trend that I see spreading further rather than just sticking in California.
But I mean, let's be honest. In these days, it is mainly Nike and Adidas who are shaping the trends in the market, right? And we've seen Nike. Okay, they still want to keep the Tempo alive. I mean, I think the success of the Legend 8 is going to be very important to Nike and the Tempo line, because if this flops, I mean, are they going to still try and stick with leather? Are they going to go a little bit back? What's going to happen? I mean, I feel they're at a crossroads with this. What are they going to do? But I really like what Adi are doing, and to some extent also Puma, saying, okay, leather is a part of our legacy. It's a part of our DNA. Let's always have a leather boot, a modern interpretation of a leather boot, that is, but let's always have it. So with the Copa, the Puma King Platinum, I mean, they're doing leather executions that are, like time relevant, if you know what I mean. So I'm just saying, as long as these brands have some sort of incentive to do leather boots, as in it's part of our history, it's a part of the story we want to tell, I think they're going to be around. But you are right. absolutely right in that brands want to have higher control and flexibility over what they can do. And synthetics will be the way forward also in terms of cost. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. But just think about this, Jay. Like the Tiempo, I think the Tiempo Legend 6 started this new trend in getting rid of stitching on a leather upper, which was really the first major innovation we had seen on leather boots for a very long time. Legend 7 took it to the next level. Then we saw the Copa 19 Plus being a laceless concept. Now we get the Legend 8 Elite, which I think is about as much as you can possibly do to modify a leather upper, short of just changing the material of the upper altogether. The Rebula 3, I think, is a great example of adding an extra bit of performance to the leather without taking away from the feel. But what more can they possibly do from here? In an industry that is so much driven around the latest, greatest, brand new thing, I feel like all of the exciting innovation that they could possibly introduce onto a leather football boot, we've just seen it right now, and there's nowhere for them to go. So 10 years from now, what are we going to get aside from just variations of what we already have? People are going to lose interest.
But I mean, yeah, this is it's not the same as we got back in like 1998. But I mean, I think with innovation and with time, there will be different executions of leather. I'm just thinking like very spacey here. Are we gonna see leather actually fused with synthetics? So we see like synthetic yarns or whatever actually ingrained into leather boots. I mean, it could be whatever. I just think that as long as the willingness is there, and look, you're absolutely right, and I'm gonna lay down and hold my hands up. You are right, but I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here. Is that as long as there is a willingness in the brand, I think we might just see someone pushing boundaries somewhere. It might not be Nike because the Legend 8 doesn't leave me reassured that the Nike are still, on top of the leather innovation game right now, at least. But there will be someone out there who have the desire to push leather, because imagine being the brand or the dude who brings back leather, or who takes the next step for leather, right? That would be like being the guy who invented Flyknit. Like for me, it would be that big of a deal. And Flyknit also came out of nowhere at one point, right? I'm just saying, I think you're right, and you make a very strong case, but nothing for me is impossible when it comes to leather, because it's so ingrained in football boot DNA to me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Am I making sense or just rambling?
You're right. I don't think it'll be gone. I think every big brand will offer one leather option. I think that will always be the case, short of leather becoming illegal for some reason. Which I don't think that's going to happen, right?
California, yeah.
But I don't think we're ever going to see as many leather boots as current models as what we have right now in 2019 moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. So which is better, leather or synthetic for you?
It's a tough question. I don't like this question, Jay. I don't like this question, and it's our question that we made up. So I'm going to say, I have to say leather. I have to.
But yeah, and I'm going to say the same, but we've just made a case that synthetic is so freaking awesome. Why are we both saying leather? Is it because we're old, or is it just because we're like, why? Oh, he's gone. Great. So I'm just going to talk now. That's that I can easily do that. I'm totally prepared for this. So no, I just think, leather for me offers me something that every other synthetic boot out there doesn't. And maybe it's because I've grown up with leather, but it's just so unique that no other material has hit what leather hits for me. And with leather being thinner, lighter, still maintaining the high comfort levels, well, I don't really see why it for me it's still my material of choice because of what modern leather can give me. Of course, I love synthetic boots. I love the new Vapors. I love the X 19.1s. But you can also get leather boots that can give you more or less the same thing as those boots, right?
For sure.
Oh, did your earpods run?
Yeah,
AirPods
my AirPods failed me completely. Failed me. Battery died.
Oh, the comments are going to be so bad, man.
Can I just put this out there? I agree that they are very goofy, and I legitimately and you have to believe me on this. I only wear the AirPods to do this podcast, and the only reason why is because I have to listen to Jay through the phone, and if I have a cable here, then I'm like right now I'm stuck. Like I can't move, and like for an hour I'm sitting here just very nervous about pulling my entire setup over. So the AirPods allow me to be a little bit more free if I want to move around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that tends to happen when people have to listen to me for an hour. That they want to they want to do something to distract them from the like the torture it is of listening to my voice.
Like for 45 minutes, I have this urgency to just run away.
Yeah. So now you're stuck, man. This is good. Because I think let's wrap it up. Say we both prefer leather, but it's a very personal thing. So let us know if you haven't already in the comment section right down below what you think is the best material. Because I'm genuinely curious to see it. But with that said, should we naturally jump into the questions here?
Absolutely.
Mike. Mike, there is still hope for the Nike Tiempo because I just saw the Nike Tiempo Legend 8 Pro. The Legend 8 Pro seems more old traditional leather boot. There is no quad fit and the tongue seems different as well. Hopefully the pros get a good review from the boot nerds. I just got it in my hands today and I thought the same thing, but then I got on my feet and I was like a little bit, it's not as good as I wanted it to be.
No, there's something about, it must be the texturing that they've added to the leather that takes away from it to some degree. I still think it's a very good boot. And I still think it's one of the best takedown models at that price point. But have you seen the Academy yet?
No.
The Academy is almost exactly the Pro with a slightly cheaper heel liner. So
that's it.
So my recommendation, if you're just looking for my recommendation, Jay's, feel free to share yours on a future episode of the Boot Nerds podcast. Spend half the money on the Academy rather than the Pro, unless you're really want the Pro. The Pro is nicer in terms of overall quality, but I think the Academy is like 95% of what you get from the Pro. The upper is almost identical.
That's a bold statement. And I'm like, what are they? It makes sense. I mean, that's a big price point for Nike. There's a lot of volume behind that, so it makes good sense. But yes, I mean, there is hope, and I do feel that the Pro, apart from the leather itself, but it does give you the feel of a more traditional Tiempo, which I appreciate, and it is a very good value for money.
Yeah, this is what I'll say.
Not the best.
This is what I'll say because the Legend 7 Pro is a really good takedown model as well. Because
fantastic!
Partially because it was kangaroo leather, right? The new Legend 8 Pro is calfskin rather than kangaroo leather. But and I was thinking, why did Nike do that? Because the retail price hadn't changed.
Because they knew that if they made that with kangaroo leather, the people would go for that instead of the Elite. Well, it has to be the explanation.
There's that, but there's also more leather to the upper on the new Tiempo. Like a good, significantly more, like the entire medial side. So I'm thinking maybe to cut costs a little bit, they switched it to calfskin, but you're probably right. It's more so down to just comparing too closely. Because I think it did get to a point where at least I was saying on my channel that, hey, why buy the Legend 7 Elite when you can spend half the money and get the Pro and it's almost the same thing? Like, the features you lose are not really significant features.
Oh, ACC.
Oh, that's true, but that goes without saying, Jay. We don't need to say that. No, everyone knows.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is hope for the Legend, but the hope isn't as bright as it was for the Legend 7, sadly. I also had high hopes, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. But good input with the Academy. I'm definitely going to take a look at that. So, Paul Kim, following the innovation path that Nike has shown, do you think that this Tiempo, with all of its tech, is going to be used to ultimately improve the next generation vision, remove the collar and add a Flyknit tunnel, and that checks off the oneness with the boot feeling? Also, while I understand judging a shoe based on its history, couldn't you argue also that change should be judged for its change and not history? And Paul, you, sir, make a very good point here because we have been slacking off the Legend for what it, also for almost for what it isn't rather than what it is, if you know what I mean. It's not a classic Tiempo, but it's a very good boot. And yes, this is the thing with the Legend 8 Elite. And I think, Josh, you probably agree with me that it's a great boot. It's an absolutely fine boot. well-performing, very responsive, pretty comfortable, lovely touch in the ball. I don't really have much to hate about, except for what it's not. So you're right. If it wasn't called the Tempo, if it was called the Uber Touch 3000, yeah, fantastic. But it is called the Tempo, and I can't look past that. I'm not a good enough man to be able to do that, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you. You don't need to throw them like that, though.
No boots were harmed. I give up. It's like I give up.
As far as he also asked about what the direction of the next vision.
Oh yeah.
You know what? That's a good. I haven't really thought about that until now. I don't know where they go with that boot.
No,
right? Like,
because this is basically taking over everything that the Vision could, minus the god awful color. I mean,
yeah. If I had to guess, it'll maintain quad fit. It'll maintain fly knit. And I think the unique part of what they did with the Vision was the texture. I think that what they do with the texture second time around, if they decide to stick with it, will be 10 times as extreme.
The big thing, yeah.
Right? I think that's what it'll be. Which also won't make a lot of sense, because then if they go in the direction of all this texture and all this added grip, then what's the point of the Venom? I like, you could make the argument that the Venom and the Vision are kind of almost trying to do the same thing. But I don't know.
Nah, the Vision is a little bit more Magista, Magista CTR, and the Venom is a bit more like, I don't know what the Venom is. It's a great boot, but again, is it too similar to the Mercurial? Probably. It's basically just the Mercurial.
I think less. I think less so now with the new generation. I think the new generation separates itself more. But I mean, the whole Phantom series from Nike is a little bit, I don't know, misguided at this point. I'm not sure where it's going to go from here. I'm excited to see, but I have this strong feeling that it's just going to be something completely different, a new concept.
But I think you're right that the Vision is going to be more of the same, only more extreme, and that's the only way they can go with that boot. It's like Nemesis, like they really dedicated themselves to that now, so they just have to go harder and harder.
Cool.
But it was a great question. Paul Kim, I applaud you. That was a great question.
Excellent job. 10 out of 10 question.
10 out of 10 question. GVC, which is the worst football boot ever?
Ever.
And go.
That's bold. Okay. Are we going to keep this to top end models?
Yeah, let's do that. Because obviously there are a lot of rubbish takedown models out there.
Bad is hard. I don't know that there's that many terrible boots. And
yes.
You think there's that many terrible?
Superfly 2, Superfly 3, New Balance Furon 1, New Balance Vizaro 2.
Okay, I agree with all of those. For sure, I agree with all of those. But are they necessarily terrible? I guess.
Yes.
I guess this. You know what? As crazy as this might seem, I think the Superflies are worse than those New Balance boots, simply based on the fact that they'll just destroy your feet. They just will. Yeah. And Superfly 1 has to be in that group for me, because those just wrecked me.
Yeah, I wasn't as unlucky with the Superfly ones. And also, they still had more of that mercurial feeling to them that, you had to sacrifice a lot, but it wasn't like a brick. It wasn't a pair of Crocs around your feet. And it didn't have the stupid Nike Sense technology. I just, the Superfly 2 and 3 were just like examples of how to not make a football boot. And apparently, New Balance decided to follow that recipe with especially the Vizaro 2s. And the Furon 1 is just, I mean, that was going back to the old Mercurial Vapor 1 days and worse for, how restricted and terrible they felt on your foot.
I couldn't wear those. I remember getting them and I was excited because you hold it in your hand and the material feels like, it's kind of thin. You can see it's a mesh base. It's like, I'm excited to try this out. Stiff. I couldn't wear them for more than 5 minutes at a time. Like, I had to take them off.
So stiff, man. It was absolutely terrible. And I almost got in like off on a bad foot with the designer when at the launch event, tried the Vizaro one, loved it. And then he was like, oh, do you like the Fury? And I was like, yeah, no, it's very different. He was like, oh, no. Yeah, we didn't agree on that. Let's just put it like that. But I think, Vizaro up there is the Vizaro 2. Also, I'm especially mad at it because the first one was so good. How can you mess it up like that? And I'm just thinking,
I guess a Hypervenom fan, I almost feel like these are
Yeah, Phantom 2s were
Phantom
bad
2 was
too.
bad.
They weren't unplayable, but they were up there. And also just, terrible because they messed up one of the best boots in the last 7 years.
Yeah, that's a tough question because I don't think that anything short of being unwearable, which some of those boots were, I almost feel like this question turns into like the most disappointing boots,
Absolutely. Were the Hypervenom 2s unwearable? No, they weren't. But I would genuinely not want to go back in either of the boots I mentioned first.
That's true. All right.
Genuinely.
I think that's...
All right. Boot Nerds. Great podcast that always gets my thoughts going. My man, thank you. You've been mentioning that the Nike Mercurial Vapor line for Nike couldn't die because it has too much of a following. Do you think if they were to put out a generation or two that caused major business like the first 4 to 5 generations did, would the line be able to survive in a world with social media like it is today? And it's a fair question, and I understand where you're going. I thought about this, and for me, we've already seen like a down period for Mercurial. And I know social media wasn't as widespread and it wasn't as, ruthless as it might be today. But Mercurial has survived a terrible period before. And I think as long as they have the biggest athletes and the best marketing and the best looks, yes, there's going to be a market for them. And I think it will take more than a period of like a couple of generations for Mercurial to really die. I think it will take 7 generations of pure rubbish like the Superfly 2s and 3s for them to really go away.
I was going to say the same thing. I think their reputation is strong enough to endure 2 or 3 generations of just brutal boots. But even if the boots were brutal, and me and you said they were brutal, that only makes up a small chunk of the consumer base for that product, right? The vast majority of consumers are going to watch the game and they're going to see Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar and every other pro wearing Mercurials, wearing their custom version that's nothing like the one you can actually buy that sucks. But because they're wearing it, you're going to go and buy it too. Like,
for 400 euros.
What I really learned when I worked at a store selling boots is that so many people just don't care. They want what they want. They come in, and regardless of whether or not that boot hurts their feet the second they put it on, they're buying that boot because that's the boot that they want. And Mercurials people are that passionate about the Mercurial series where like Nike could come out with the Vapor 14 and it's filled with needles and you stick your foot in and you immediately start to bleed and people be like, this is the best thing ever. I want this right away. Charge me whatever it takes. Like, it's just, it has that following.
It does. And okay, they've been making great boots lately, but I think, yes, it will take something extraordinary, them losing all their big stars, and that's not going to happen. So yeah, I think the Mercurial is going to be really, really hard to kill off, even if you wanted to.
Yeah. What you also have to consider too is any extreme amount of negativity would only bring more attention to the brand and the line.
Exactly. And I mean, we openly said that the Superfly 2 and 3 was rubbish back in the day. Okay, we didn't have the same share of voice back then, but people still bought them.
Well, did you buy a pair?
No.
See, I bought a pair of Superfly ones. I didn't have 2s.
Oh, you stupid.
I did buy a pair of Superfly ones.
Du simpelthen for dum. Det var dog en værste beslutning i lang tid. No. Anyway, sorry about that. Another question here. JayMike, since you have worked with Puma, is there any difference of priority of Puma rather than other brands? I think Dinny Bricks means here. I mean, for me, it's difficult to say because obviously I'm going to say no. I would try to stay objective and fair to everyone. Of course, I love what we did with Puma, but also I've been very aware of not wanting it to skew my perception of the brand. I mean, if they do rubbish stuff now, I say it. I mean, I'm not necessarily super fond of the Future 4.1. But I mean, yeah, we made a shoe together, and it was a fantastic experience. Probably one of the best experiences of my football boot career. But it doesn't mean that I just love whatever they do. So, but Josh, you tell me, am I Puma biased?
1,000%.
Get the fuck out.
No, definitely not. Right?
I mean, when you get given something as beautiful as this, I mean, right?
Yeah, like it's an opportunity that's you can't pass up. It's I'm sure it was an incredible experience, and
It was.
I mean, hey, look, they're what? That's Puma 19. They're 2 generations ahead of that now. It's like
Sure.
it's just things change so fast now. It's not like, oh, Jay designed a boot with Puma and that's going to be their boot for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and also like in this, like, talking of social media before, like, if I was biased towards Puma, you guys would call me out. Josh, you would call me out. I mean, I would get stick because people can see, you know, the bullshit radars of people today. They're just so well tuned. So it would be bad. And people would actually see through me. So hopefully I'm not too biased towards Puma. I hope not. Anyway, how can we get Nike to bring back the first Hypervenom? Asks Andrew. And yeah, do you have the golden answer here? Because bring back the Hypervenom, please, Nike.
I'm just trying to think of a good answer, like an actual answer. I think there's a chance it's going to come back. I mean, if they did the remake of the T90 Laser 1,
has to come back.
right? It'll come back.
I think it's a matter of time.
I don't know. The focus of that boot was so much around Neymar. So would it be something with Neymar down the line? Because they've kind of moved.
But what can we do?
Well, like all I'm thinking is like they have to tell a story around a re-release.
Yeah.
And what story?
There wasn't any story.
There was no
around
story.
T90 would.
Yeah, I guess not.
It just felt like it. Yeah, it came out with the Phantom Venom, so I guess it kind of tied into that. So unless they like,
I guess the only power we have, we could get a petition going that you could sign. And we could send it off to Nike, or if Nike, if you're watching, JayMike and myself, as well as all the Boot Nerds viewers, they really want Hypervenom Phantom 1, so you could make that happen.
You know what? They probably have it in their plans somewhere. It wouldn't surprise me if somewhere down the line in 2020 or 2021 there's a Hypervenom 1 re-release. It wouldn't surprise me.
How about how about this? They just do a special edition variation. Remember how they did that special Hypervenom 3 Montebelluna?
Oh yeah.
They do
the GX.
They do a Nike Phantom Venom Hypervenom Phantom 1 special edition.
Yeah. Make it happen. I'd buy it.
Right?
Or they screw us all over. They announce they're gonna make a Nike Phantom Venom Hypervenom Phantom re-release, and it's the Phantom 2.
They need to release that just for the name. Just no Puma bias here, but that would outname Puma in any freaking boot.
Yeah,
that's an amazing name.
Yeah. Right. That was actually also the last question. So let's see if we can get a petition going and bring back what will be named henceforth as the Nike Phantom Venom Hypervenom Phantom 1 or 2 or 3.
I approve this message.
Great. So with that said, guys, I think that rounds off episode 26 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Now, remember that if you haven't asked a question already, you want us to answer that in the next episode or the next episode after that, you can leave it in the comment section right down below. Remember that if you want to listen to all of these in the audio-only version, there's a link in the description. You should, of course, also go and leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Get your mom and friends and cat and cousin to go subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already, click the bell notification button to see all our latest videos the second they drop. You should also go and follow Josh now that you're at it, clicking buttons here, clicking his icon right over there, and go and follow what we do at Unisport by clicking the green bubble somewhere over my head. And with that said, guys, we're signing off. I'm JayMike, and I approve this message.
See you later.
Ha' det godt, mine venner. Hej hej. Hygge jer. Kig med næste gang. Det bliver så godt.